Hi, good day for all of you. So my name is Valter. I'm here to present you an introduction on how to motivate your employee and win the talent war in the post-COVID environment in the SAIL Revival 2021 conference. Just to introduce myself, so as I said, my name is Valter Lopes. I work currently at Bayer here in Brazil. I'm from Brazil, here living close to São Paulo. And during my career, basically, I have been a consultant for the entire life, switching between internal and external consulting companies. Okay. So I started my career back in McKinsey for almost 6 years in the beginning as business analyst, and then I reached the role of manager. And during this time, I also pursued my MBA at IE Business School in Spain, and then moved to the industry. I went to work in the pharmaceutical industry here in Brazil in a company called Ipera Pharma, and worked in the internal consulting department. Then went back to McKinsey for some time. And then I joined Bayer in 2017 in the internal consulting department that's called business consulting, or BC as we call it. During this time, I have worked in two departments, 2 years in Germany, work in the business transformation department, and then back to Brazil in 2019. And since then, I have been working in market and sales, leading the market and sales projects in the Latin region. From a personal perspective, despite my interest for sure in market and sales topics and all this type of stuff, that's also why I'm here in the Sales Revival Conference. I have a very high interest and involvement in people topics. So it's something that I really like to pursue in my career, that in my free time, I like to read about it and devote and in the day to day also to devote time to develop people, to retain talent and this type of activities is really something that drives me. Okay. That's why I really want to share with you my point of view in some topics on how to manage things in this new work environment that's already being developed, let's say. So that's myself in a nutshell. Also, let's say from a personal perspective, here in São Paulo, I am living, say, with my wife, and I have two kids, twins, 5 years old. So I have also experienced some of the challenge that I'm going to share with you here, also from a personal perspective, as they have been with me for 6 months without going to school and so on. So I think this is something that I really can tell you, let's say, first person, right? So this is what I'd like to introduce from myself and then move directly to, let's say, to the content, to discussion, and to share with you some of my thoughts. Thank you, and thank you for watching this presentation. What's our agenda for today? Okay, we have four main topics here, and I'm not going to I have no interest in being exhaustive, right? It's about sharing you some initial thoughts, some initial perspective on something that's really going on, right? So there's also no end game here. It's something being built, I would say, okay? So the four main topics is COVID-led changes in work structure, right? We are going to talk about it. A historical perspective on labor market, and we are going to understand why I'm bringing this topic, because I think it's very important also to put things in a, let's say, in a broader context to understand how things evolved over time. Some hints on the post-COVID emerging models, and the leadership and motivation and as key cornerstones, right? So how we should use it in order to win this talent war. Why am I talking a lot about talent war, right? I think that we have heard a lot about how things are moving after COVID, right? There is some constraints on workforce movement, so people are not finding it easy to go from one country to another. On the other hand, also there is something about, let's say, virtual work environments, but at the same time, a lot of companies looking for new talents and so on. So I have also talked to a lot of colleagues around the world, and many of them are really worried about getting the right talent in the next 2 years, 3 years, or something like that, right? So I have talked to people, let's say, in Australia, in Germany, in Spain, in US, and talent is really a key issue that should be taken by companies seriously, right? And then I think that COVID also brought some change on how we are going to be able to attract, retain, motivate, and develop the talent in the day-to-day, okay? That's why I think that this is a very hot topic now for most companies and for most industries. Okay? To start it, right? So if we think about COVID, the work paradigms, they changed quickly during the pandemic, right? But let's say in a broader perspective, right? What's the main topic that we can see here, right? We can talk about, let's say, some specific points, some specific topics like home office, virtual setup, and so on. It's all true, right? But from a more general view, we have a continuous struggle to accommodate work and life, right? So work and life, those things are connected, right? But at the same time, they have some kind of separation, at least so far, right? So you have work and you have life, and before COVID-19, I would say that most people, they have those things clearly separated in their lives, right? Then when COVID comes, and for example, we have to stay at home and all those kind of stuff, what happens, right? We have a complete integration of both sides of this equation. So work and life, they come together. And so you are not able to see because you don't have even a physical separation anymore. From my personal perspective, as I said, I really felt this difference, right? So before COVID, I went to work in the office. Then after work, I went to take my kids on the school, and then I took them home, and then have dinner, and start the routine again and again. But then now on, say I was in meetings, and my kids were just side by side with me. And they were, I don't know, they were shouting, they were wanting to play, they want to eat, they want to have all these type of situations, right? So I was not able to say that I have work and I have a life anymore, right? So this is what COVID brought to us, work and life together, mixed, right? So happening at the same time, at the same place, right? So for most of us at home, right? So we are doing both things at home. All those things came together. Why it's positive from some sense, and let's say we know the topics, right? It's about commuting and more time with family and all those good vibes. There are also some challenges, right? Historical perspective, and this is very interesting from my point of view, right? So this work-life connection that we see now, that they are all together, right? People are posing it as something really new and really revolutionary or something in this direction, right? But if you get a closer look at the human history, right, this is not unusual, right? So I think it's the opposite, right? For most of the time, work and life, they are pretty connected, right? They are not two separate dimensions, but they work as like one single dimension. Quick examples here, right? So if you come to the ancient world, right? So one of the main sources of your workforce, let's say basically is slavery, right? So when you have slavery, let's say the owner, you know, of the workforce is also responsible for the well-being, of the slaves, right? And it's not for humanitarian reasons, but you have to take care of your owners, or let's say of your possessions, in this case the slaves, for them to be, let's say, they have to be maintained, and they have to be able to work and to provide. So there is a connection, right? Because they are working, but at the same time, the owner is also responsible for their well-being to guarantee that they have food and they can wake up the next day to work again, right? If you move to the middle age, right? So serfdom is usually the main way to structure work, right? But again, life was really connected between work and, let's say, private life, right? So let's say the feudal lord, he has to provide protection, he has to give an area for people to raise their crops. And then, for example, you have, let's say, the church giving let's say, caring for spirituality and this type of stuff. So if you think about middle age, work and life, they're all together, right? You work in that place, and then you have your kids there, and then let's say you have your feudal lord taking care of you, and all those different dimensions of work and private life all together, right? When does it change? So it doesn't change, let's say, thousands of years ago, but basically it changed in the Industrial Revolution, right? So let's say in the centuries 18th, beginning of 19th century, and then it starts to change. So it's really, let's say, yesterday, I would say, from a human history perspective, right? That's when you have the separation of work and life, right? So basically, work, the relationship between work and let's say and the owner, right, and the employer, right, is based on a simple monetary exchange, right? From one side, it's positive, right, because people, they are free. So they have kind of freedom to decide where they want to work, for whom. Then it's basically about a monetary exchange, right? You sell your work, someone pay for it, and then, let's say, conceptually, there is a free market where people, they agree on that and so on, right? But there is no connection on the other aspects of the life, right? So the owner of the industry, right, just he pays the salary and that's it, right? And then the worker responsible to care for health, protection, food, or all the basic human needs, right? So there is freedom. They are not slaves. There is not serfdom anymore. But on the other hand, let's say the employer is not worried, is not concerned about your daily life, right? So this separation of work and life is not is something really new to the human history, right? And it has been working. I'm not going to say whether it's pretty well or not well or whatever, right? But it has been in place for the last two and a half centuries, right? And then COVID comes, right? So the question is, what's next, right? Is this separation of work and life come again to the same perspective as before, as we said, let's say, from the Industrial Revolution, or this connection is going to last, right? And how it's going to be developed, right? This is something that we still don't know, right? We are trying to figure out. What we see, right? Because then, as we said, so we had a setup, right? And we had a setup that people come to work in the beginning, the industry, now more in offices and so on. And then they come to the office every day, and then they get the money, and then they get back to their home, and then, let's say, they decide what to do with their lives, right? And then COVID comes, and then it seems that now everything is based on home office, everything is based on virtual relations, and this is the new normal, right? So we are moving from one extreme to the other, right? And then you say, oh, are people get crazy that now we come in 6 months from one extreme to the other and so on? And again, from a historical perspective, this is something, let's say, I would say, normal, right? Every time that you have a big change, a big challenge, let's say a revolution, that's something that I'm going to bring here. The first reaction is to come from one extreme to the other, right? But thanks God, usually, right, this is not something that lasts long, right, or lasts forever, right? We tend to come to something midterm, right? So that's the idea. And then some historical examples of that, right? So you had the French Revolution, right? So you have the monarchy, and then after the French Revolution, what do we have? You have the reign of terror, right? So for some time, for some years in France, let's say there was let's say a system, a government established by the monarchy and so on. Then when you remove it, then it comes the reign of terror. So revenge, people killing, and all this type of stuff, and some fights on the street, and all, let's say, and a big mess, right? So one extreme to the other, right? But then let's say the good sense comes, right? So then you move from reign of terror to the First Republic, right? So again, a different way to structure the government, a different way to, let's say, to drive the society with different values, with different behaviors expected, let's say a new order and so on, but something with some type of structure, right? Then we have the end of communism, right, in Soviet Union. So the first thing that people did after the end of the communism, they went to the McDonald's. So you went from communism to the McDonald's fever in Russia. I don't know, maybe some of you are not old enough to remember that, but I clearly remember that those long lines in Moscow with the first McDonald's, and everybody wants to, let's say, to taste a little bit of capitalism, let's say. And why? Again, from one extreme, let's say, for communism, to say it's one of the biggest examples of capitalism. And then people getting crazy and wanting McDonald's and all this type of the Western world and so on, right? Then you get back to rationality to say, okay, like we don't need to eat McDonald's every day. This is not going to save our lives. It's not going to make us better and so on. And then you have, let's say, the rationality back. You have people that they go to McDonald's from time to time, but let's say the restaurants, they are not packed with people and so on, right? I personally believe that this is what's going to happen with the, let's call it the COVID revolution, right? So we went from office to full remote work. It's not intended, or it was not something intentional, right? But it happened, right? But we went to one extreme to the other, right? From everyday office, Monday to Friday, staying there in our desks, doing our job and so on. And then we move to the other extreme, right? Full remote work, at least in Brazil, let's say most companies still are in this type of setup. You are basically not allowed to go to the office, right? It's a full remote work compulsory, right? That you have to do it. But as I said, I personally believe that we are going to move to something in the midterm, right? From full remote work to something, right? I think it's not possible for us to, let's say, to pinpoint what specifically is going to be the end game. But I really believe that the end game is going to be something in between. We are not going back to office Monday to Friday, because we know the positive sides of it. On the other hand, we know that there are some very positive aspects on the personal touch points, let's say meeting face to face, creating things and so on, right? But again, this behavior of moving from one extreme to another for some time and then get back into something in the middle, this is something that I'd say it's natural in the human history. Okay, where we are now, right? So where are we now? So we talked about it. So the world as a whole did so far and what we should do, right? In a nutshell, my view is that there are some phases and we are more or less midway in this path, okay? So first thing, let's say crisis response. COVID comes, we have to do something. We have to protect our people. We have to put health issues over anything. And let's say it's about surviving, right? So it's done, right? 2020, 2020, 2021. So let's say it's the crisis response. It's a little bit, I'm not saying it's negative or positive, but it was necessary. It's extreme, right? So it's not allowed to go to the office unless you are working in some specific sectors, doing some specific activities, but you go to the extreme, right? Now, we are starting to get back to a accommodation phase, right? So we see many companies, people going back to offices and companies trying to say how to accommodate the needs. We also see that we need to accommodate the needs, for example, for mental health. So people that need to go back to the office, let's say in developed countries, because let's say that they need the contact, they're feeling a lot of pressure at home and so on. In developing countries like Brazil, on top of that, that's also present some social economic reasons. So people, they don't have enough space in their homes to work, they don't have the necessary infrastructure and so on, right? So we are now in the phase of accommodation, right? So it started probably in the second half of 2021 and should go further 2022, something like that, right? We are in the beginning of the creativity phase, right? So we are designing the so-called new normal, right? And what are the different models? So many companies, they are trying different setups. You have companies saying, yeah, be back Monday to Friday. You have companies to say you don't need to come here anymore, and you have a lot of companies also trying to do something, let's say in the middle, to accommodate let's say the personal needs of the workforce, or also let's say the need for productivity and so on, right? So this is a phase, a little bit of creativity, right? We are going to see a lot of different models. We are going to see many, let's say, LinkedIn posts of companies talking about their new models, their new normal, and how they are structuring the workforce in the day-to-day. And I really believe that we're in the middle of this phase, right? They should go a little bit further, probably next year and so on, right? And then we're going to end in a phase of adaptation, right? So, I don't know, hundreds of different models and so on, right? But then we are going to start tracking results to see which models they seem to be more feasible to a specific industry, to a specific group of employees with specific needs and so on, right? So probably what we are going to have, right, is something, let's say, from the hundreds of different models, the combinations, we are going to find the 3, 4, 5, whatever, right, most productive ones or most successful ones, and then working those models, and this is going to become, let's say, the ways that are going to be recognized as the most efficient ones, right? So 3, 4, 5 models to pick up and so on. It's not one size fits all, but on the other hand, it's not that people tend to have, let's say, it's a full bunch of different things to do. There are things that are going to prove themselves more efficient and so on. And then at some point, right, we are going to have change again, right? So I don't know whether it's going to be COVID, it's going to be something different, it's going to be a generational pressure for different needs and so on, right? So those models, they're going to last until the next crisis, let's say, right? Until there is something again hitting our beliefs, hitting what we're doing and so on, right? So this is, for me, is the cycle. We went to the extreme because we needed. Now we are trying to accommodate the needs. So it's more or less done, I would say, right? We are in the phase of creativity. A lot of different models come, but we are going to go through an adaptation, prioritization, and so on until the next crisis. So again, when we are living it, right? it's also seen that this is very unique and this is something that never happened again. This is a unique historical moment and so on. And as it's true, because let's say each period in history is unique, but on the other hand, we can see some patterns, right, that they repeat from time to time, right, over history, in different scenarios, in different contexts, and so on, right? So this is something that you're going to see happening again and again. Maybe, right, due to, let's say, to the speed of information, to the speed on how things evolve, and so on, maybe we're going to have this cycle on how to change things, or how to structure work, and so on. They're going to last less and less, right? Because the changes are going to be more common and so on. But let's say we don't know, right? There is no way to predict it in a very accurate way, right? So this is where we are. We are in the middle of a journey. So if you don't know what to do, it's normal. If you did something wrong, it's okay. The important thing is to let's say, to get back and to learn from the errors, from the mistakes, and so on, and then move forward again, because this is where we are. No one knows exactly what to do. Okay. What we need to avoid it here, right? We need to avoid, again, the one size fits all trap, right? This is something that we really need to take care of, right? And what do I mean for it, right? If we get back, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years ago, or even less, right? We have one size fits all model, right? So we have an office environment, so everybody was there. I know that there were companies that they were, let's say, leading some change and providing some flexibility and so on. But overall, this was one size fits all for 90% of the workforce. Right? Come to the office Monday to Friday, high control. Okay, a lot of companies talking about focus on deliverables, but in the end, you had to be there from 9 to 5, from 8 to 10, depending on the sector and so on, and a lot of intermediate KPIs, right? So you have to be there. You have to say you have to present your face time, and you have to stay in a specific place and so on. So this was the one size fits all model that we had before, right? What's the trap here, right? That we try to develop a second one size fits all model. What's the second one size fits all model? So now it's about home office, right? So everybody's staying home office forever. It's really nice. Everybody's enjoying, and this is the new normal, and we have to adapt ourselves to it. And now there is a new winner, right? So it's all about home office. There is no physical space. So we have a lot of companies that now, let's say, they gave back their offices. Now there is a movement of other companies, let's say, rebuilding offices, buying new offices, but let's say, and there is a clear speech also on, there is for sure the speech that this also support the employees' productivity, which I think it's true in most cases, but also there is a strong speech on cost reduction, right? So without physical space, companies can reduce their costs. So also employees, they can choose where to live. And now there is also a very heated discussion that if employees choose to live in a different place, should they earn less because they have less costs and so on, right? So my first takeaway here is that let's try to avoid it. The one size fits all model one of the office environment, in my view, was not complete, was not efficient, was not, let's say, facing the, let's say, giving a response to the needs and to the expectations of an important part of the workforce. But the second one neither is providing this equilibrium, right? This, let's say, this response, this let's say, to the employee needs. So it's not about moving again from one extreme to the other. So I have read some articles, let's say the last month or even last year, right? People to say that this is the era of home office, right? I don't believe in it. In my view, this is the era of choice, right? So what we have to invest on, right, is not about office or home office or something. It's about giving options to employees, right? So what does it mean? So diverse models, they have to work together, right? Yes, we need some type of maybe some, I don't know, some policies or something regulating, let's say some guidelines or something like that, right? Because if not, it can also become a mess and you're not able to see where people are and so on. But let's say you have to give freedom to people somehow to decide what's better. It's about office, it's about home office, about something in between and so on. But you need to train your leaders, right? So it's not, you cannot just put all the burden of this change in the leaders and say, guys, now just let's go there and try to cope with it, right? So you have to prepare your people to do it. So in order for you to really have this era of choice, right? You have diverse model in places, you need leaders that they are trained to do so and so on. And then you have to adapt your compensation and benefits, right? Maybe something that you provide before to your employees, they are not valid or they are not relevant anymore. And so you have to check your compensation model, you have to check your perks, you have to check what is relevant for the employees, and then try to make a full ecosystem supporting it. In a nutshell here, for me, it's avoid going from one size fits all to a second one size fits all. It's not an era of home office. It's not an era of virtual connections. It's an era of virtual connections, but it's also an era of personal connection. It's an era of home office, but it's also an era of office environment. So that's for me the most important part. This is an era of choice to win, let's say, the talent war and to be able to attract people, it's not defining a winner model. The winner model is going to be a combination of different models here. Okay. Uh, so to be successful in it, right? There are some transitioning tools that we should use for it, especially on leadership. I'm going to focus here on leadership, right? As I said before, we cannot expect that our leaders, they are ready to deal with this, let's say, all those changes, right? So they need something to support them. They need something to prepare them. So you're not going to make, let's say, those different models, even if you go to the new one size fits all, right? And just to say, okay, now this is the model. Now you have to develop your talents. You have to take care of your team. You have to let's say to find a way to cope with those challenges, right? So this is not fair. So if you don't put it, if you don't put enough, let's say, investment, time, and all, let's say, in an ecosystem supporting your leaders, you're not going to succeed, right? So what I bring here is some hints on really relevant things to do, right? The first one, in my view, yeah, it's traditional, but I think it's needed, right? So it's about, let's say, really content training, right? So you really need to train your leaders to understand the concepts and the implications of new ways of working, right? You cannot expect anyone to be able to implement something or track or monitor something if they don't know it, if they don't understand the concept behind it, if they don't believe in it, right? And to do it, let's say knowledge management is a key lever, right? Because things they are not going, they're going, as I said before, we are still in the era of creativity, right? So new models come and different experience and results and articles popping up here and there and so on, right? So your leaders, they need to be trained to understand what it is and the implications, And you as a company, right? You should be ready, let's to make a knowledge management to understand what's going on. So this is the first thing. The second thing is that you have to support your leaders, right? You have to put an ecosystem in place to guide the leaders through this transformation journey. So content training is the first part, right? So now they understand the concept, they know what it is. I hope that you're able to make them believe in it, because if not, it's going to be difficult. But now you have to put something in place to support this transformational journey, right? So you need to put a change management approach, and then communication strategy, and all those type of stuff to support the leadership. And mistakes will happen, right? It's not only about uh, it's about being accountable, but people also need help, right? So you need to understand that this is going to be a journey, right? So there's a new way to structure work, new way to manage it, let's say teams. There are new way to connect with people. Your leaders, they're also learning it, right? So you need to put supporting mechanisms in place and understand that you're going to have some fallbacks that you need to support and go on, right? The third thing is about the rewards and the consequences. I already start talking about it. So the first thing is that if you want to be successful in those new models, you have to clearly define what success is, right? And based on that, you have to define what a successful leader is, right? Because it's changing, right? So we don't know. It's about being more what, more X, more Y, more Z. We don't know. Then you have to understand what's going to be success, right? And then you should, right, identify in this journey, right, as soon as possible, role models, leaders that they are really, let's say, incentivizing the right behaviors, that they are present as and role models, and then you have to pinpoint those people and, let's say, identify, publicize what they're doing, incentivize them to have some showcases there, right? And unfortunately, right? And again, we talked about support earlier. I'm not saying that this is something that should happen in the first weeks, right? But also you should have some consequence rules for leaders that they're not engaging, right, in this chain, right? So the former way to manage people and so on will not work, right? As we said before, we don't know what's going to be the end game, but it's not going to be the game from 2019 and so on, right? It's going to be a different game. So you should train leaders, you should support them, but at some point you also have to put in place some clear consequence, right? So clear rules on how to deal with those people, right? And tracking, as you said, this is an ongoing phenomenon. This is an ongoing situation that we don't know where it's going to end, what's going to be the end game. But, right, you should put in place clear ambitions, right? So what you as a company you want to be, what you want to be perceived, what's the brand image that you want for your employees, and therefore for your leaders to mirror it, right? So and saying those objectives that they cannot be very general to say as a company only, but in each department, because let's say when we go to a company, we have a lot of different realities, right? So if we analyze let's say the team in a finance environment, the team in a R&D environment, the team in a data environment, there are going to be different ones. So we have also to accommodate those different realities and so on, right? And then from time to time, identify the gaps you have and then take the corrective measures and so on, right? So this is the journey, but they star in the journey. Leaders are the stars in the journey, right? So if you don't take care of them, if you don't understand how you should prepare, support, and guide them through this journey, the chances of success, they are really low. Being very transparent, right? It's not about finding the right model. We can design a perfect model, let's say at least conceptually, right? But if you don't have people to put in place, it's not going to work, right? That's why you have to focus again on those people, on those leaders, and those people leaders that they're going to, let's say, to drive your workforce through it. Okay. Let's say. So talked about leaders, but then let's talk a little bit about the employee, right? So what's different from now on? For you to be successful, to succeed, right? Companies, they need to put in place initiatives that support the employees. And now, as we said, as work life is connected, right? You need to put in place a mechanism that they respond to the needs from those two dimensions, right? That work and life coming together, right? So also, if you want to be attractive, if you want to be perceived as, let's say, as a great place to work, as a place where people really want to come and work for you and so on. Sorry for the buzzword, but you have to implement something as a holistic approach. Okay, it's needed, right? So if you don't put in place mechanisms that take care of all the dimensions, probably you're going to lose the talent war. Okay, so the work-life connection, let's say, is good and so on, but also it comes with challenge, and the response from companies on how to deal with the needs of the employees, it should take this, let's say, this scenario into consideration, right? What I have seen is that successful companies, right, they are put in place this approach that also provides a comprehensive support to employees, right? And this is a key topic here. What do I mean by it? For example, psychological support, right? So we cannot just say that, let's say that the psychological topics is something private and so on, and this is a personal topic and this type of stuff, right? So we know depression, anxiety, family-related problems, relationships. Now that things are so intrinsically connected, right? This is part of the, let's say, of the day-to-day of companies, right? So you should put in place something to also support them. So, for example, legal advice, right? So yeah, I have seen many companies. Bayer is also an example of that, right? So here in Brazil, we provide legal advice for employees, right? So criminal, civil, tax, and so on. Because I say again, it's not a worker, it's a person, right? And everything is now connected again. Financial advice, right? So if your employee is not able to bear with the costs and it's running into financial problems and so on, you as a company are also responsible, not responsible in the sense of, I'm not going to enter in the discussion whether you are paying fairly or not, right? But you are responsible somehow for the well-being of them. And if they have financial situations and they need someone to support them with the financial planning and so on, this is going also to impact the daily activities, the productivity, and so on, right? So you need to put in place those type of stuff. Those are some examples, right? I'm going to show you all of them that I brought here, right? But what's the main topic here? To be successful, it's not just to say, I care for you while you are working for me, or I care for you in topics related to your daily activities at work, right? No, you have to come to something that I care for you, and then I provide you support in all the different dimensions, right? And this is what's going to make me successful and recognize it as a, let's say, as a strong employer with a strong brand management. So as I said, when I talked psychological support, legal advice, financial advice, social assistance, support for pets, right? So we talked about kids, but also pets in the day-to-day. So if, let's say, if your pet is suffering or is having some problem, it also affects you. So if you bring something that's also going to make it easier for you in the day-to-day, it's going to help you. Support for disabled people also relate to inclusion, diversity, well-being coach, right? So try to guarantee and to incentivize people for exercising, for eating healthy food and so on. So I have seen also many companies that now they have those type of programs, support people with drug addiction, alcohol, smoking, and so on, right? And provide them support if they want to quit, and for sure being, let's say, compliant and treat these with all the confidentiality needed, right? But you need to put those mechanisms in place. You are not allowed anymore to say, this is not my problem as a company, right? Yes, this is your problem because, again, things are together. If you want to get the positive side of it, right, you also need to invest something. You also need to give something back and so on, okay? And yes, there is consideration of cost. I know. I'm not saying that you should just start in, let's say, spending money like hell and that's it and so on. But I can guarantee that in the long run, if this is done in the right way, with the, let's say, the right target groups and so on, this is going to pay off, and this is going to position you and your company, let's say, in advance in order to, let's say, to attract the right talents, to win this talent war, and so on, right? To finalize here, right? I think that there are 3 steps for success. This would be my takeaways here. First one, focus on freedom and flexibility, not in magic formulas. Okay, what I mean for that? Again, there is no single model that's going to provide the best outcome for all companies and employees. Okay, and let's try to avoid the trap to say now it's the era of virtual connection and home office. In contrast to the era of office, right? No. Let's try to think about this the era of choice, right? This is what we should put in place. Okay. The second thing is that understand employees as human and not as resources, right? I'm not saying that before it was the right thing to say that they're a resource, but now let's say, you're not going to succeed if you treat them in this way. So sustainable results, they depend on employees that they are well in all dimensions of their daily lives, right? So this connection, or this intrinsic connection of work and life, it demands that in order for things to work, all dimensions of an employee, they have to work well together, right? So this is what's going to make a big difference. So you cannot say, let's say, I'm not concerned about the healthy, I'm not concerned about the financial situation of my employee, I'm not concerned with the psychological topics of my employees, because this is going to affect you. It's going to affect you in the short term, and it's going to affect you in the long term. In the short term, you're not going to be able to manage people and to get the most out of your employees. In the long term, probably you're not going to be recognized as a great place to work and something like that, okay? I think that companies that understand this need, right, will, let's say, will have a great advantage in the talent war. And the third one could be the other way around, second and third is okay. Invest in your leadership to face the new challenge, right? Don't take for granted that leaders, they are going to be able to, let's say, just to manage the change and like, it's a magic formula coming and so on, right? They need an ecosystem support them to adapt to this challenge of new ways of working and so on, right? So they need support, they need to be trained and so on. And this journey, right? And sorry for that, requiring investment, right? So you need to invest. There is no way to succeed, right? You need time. So you need time to train people, you need time to design solutions, you need time for all this type of thing, and constant tracking, right? This is not, we are not in the end of the process. As I said, in my view, we're in the middle of the process, right? So things that are going to work, other things are not going to work, and then you should be able to track the challenge. You are going to the challenge. You're going to be able to monitor the results, and let's say be prepared for possible setbacks because they're going to come, right? It's not going to be an easy journey, but we have to go for it. I think it's a unique chance that we have to make this change. But moreover, it's not just a chance, but it's also it's kind of compulsory to do something, right? So you have to do because it's the right thing, but you have to do it to survive. If not, probably again, you are not going to be well positioned in the talent war, right? So this would be my three takeaways here. Okay. This is basically what I want to share with you from, let's say, from a personal perspective, from the challenge, from the day to day, both in my job, but also in my daily life with my family and so on, and how I believe things are going to evolve in the next years until we find, let's say, the final normal or the so-called new normal and so on. Thank you very much for the attention. Happy also to discuss and to share other thoughts if you think it's going to be really useful. But thank you very much for your attention and so on. And have a good day ahead. Thank you and bye bye.